Friends, we are going to look at shooting a daytime shot and compositing it so that it looks like it was shot at night, and like it's a nighttime shot. There are many reasons why you might want to do this. First of all, scheduling might not work out if you need a night shot and you just can't get the people there or the setup that you need at that time. Um, let's see, or the location might not be available at that time. Also, exposure. If you are shooting at night, chances are you need to increase your ISO on your camera. That will increase the amount of grain or noise in the shot, which is an artifact. And the bigger that shows up on the screen, especially if you start to manipulate it, the more visible the artifacts are. Like, everything looks great when you're compositing on a small laptop or computer screen. When you put it on a huge screen, you can see everything that's wrong with it. And specifically, since we're talking about day and night, when you manipulate brightness or value or luminance, noise becomes more visible. When you manipulate color, then your image can start to posterize. But it's when you manipulate light that we start to see the noise and grain even more. Let's see. The other factors are that you actually have more information to work with. So you can actually get a more detailed shot. If you actually shoot at night, it will be underexposed and information will just be lost, and details in your image will simply be lost. You cannot get them back. It will just be black like this. And again, when that's projected onto a huge screen, it's just a big black area with nothing in it, which is a waste of pieces of your frame, and it's uninteresting. If you want to, if things are going to get lost, it should be because you made the decision for it to be lost, if possible. Okay, so here's the before. Here's a sample of what after could look like. It might look a little bit artificial to you in this context, in this platform, but if you actually go outside, things are very dark, and things are lost, and things are very, very blue. So the one thing that you really need to do so that your eyes don't play tricks on you is actually look at a reference or take a photograph and bring it into Nuke or your software and make sure that what you're doing is recreating a realistic phenomenon. Sometimes there are things in nature that once you work with them in software and export them and look at them again, they just look fake, whether it's a mountain in the background or a day to night. You need to look, there will be a threshold where you just can't tell anymore, and you need to look at reference, either by getting a reference photograph or literally going outside and looking at what things look like. Shooting tips: you would want to shoot in the golden hour when things are already getting a little bit dark for you, so that you don't have to do that in post-production as much, but in a way so that it's, at a time of the evening, sunset or even sunrise, when there's still enough exposure. You definitely want to avoid direct sunlight. That's not something that would happen so much at night. You wouldn't see necessarily those sorts of highlights. The sky would, let me see if there's a shot of the sky here. Yeah, the sky would most likely just be flat. You might need to replace the sky totally if you include the sky, but you would not see really rich looking clouds or anything, so you'd be careful of that if you were shooting in the daytime, and to avoid having to replace the sky. You also want to avoid the presence of any hard shadows, which you probably would not see. Let's see. Okay, great. So now, I'll just look at my before one time, look at my after one more time, just to get a general sense of what our target is going to be. Not to say that this is a perfect composite, but we can get close for the sake of demo. Again, we want to just step through problem solving, simple problems. When I look at this, let's see. Yeah, when I look at this, the first thing, you're going from day to night. The first thing that we know about nighttime versus daytime is that it's much darker. This image is way too bright. So first thing I want to manipulate is brightness, maybe, and let's see, I will access that via gain in the grade node, so I'll just turn it down to a ballpark. And I'm gonna name this down brightness. So when I look back, I know what I did in my steps. And what else? At nighttime, everything is very blue. So I'll get another grade. I guess I could get a multiply. And I'll put a B on there so I know I'm putting blue into this. And I'll just increase the blue dramatically, like 3 or 5. 3. You know what? It looks almost purpley now, doesn't it? Instead of blue. So if I backtrack, typically when you start to color correct for blue, the red factors in and things start to look purple. So you could either, at this point, depending on what's happening in your comp, just go ahead and remove some of the red, and now it's a more even blue, and I'll just before, after, just to check what's going on. But another thing you could do is get even more granular in your steps. I'm going to put this back. I'm going to disable this. And I can look at this and say, you know what, this is too warm, actually. And I can open this up and do like a 0.8. It still has a little bit of a green tinge though, doesn't it? Put it at 0.85 or maybe 8.4. I'll go with 8.5. Do a before, after to check my work, and you can see that it's knocking off. Here's the before. You see that just knocks off that red tinge that it had to it. That it had to it. Hold up. Go 0.86 maybe. Before, after. You also don't want the shot to start looking unrealistic at any phase. If I go here, your eyes might not be sensitive to it, but now it's sort of getting a vintagey kind of greenish look. So that's another clue. When you think your eyes might be playing tricks on you, just check and see if it feels like it's an artificial kind of treatment at any phase. So here's before, here's after, just naturally knocked off some of that red, and now I'll move to my blue. I'm going to delete this one. And again, I could do all this within one node, but then it's really difficult to check steps. So I'll just go like bump it up to double, and now it's now in a more naturalistic way. It's becoming more blue. And I'll leave it like that for now. Okay. And you know what? You know what else? If it's still looking not quite, if the blue is blasting out in ways that you don't like, here another thing that, because of the colors that exist in the image, another way to help with this is when you are going for a monochromatic tint, such as making everything pretty much blue, having a blue tint to it. It's easier to multiply that color into your image if your image is a little bit desaturated. So you can go in before. I'll put a saturation node. Saturation can be accessed to a color correct node also, but I'll just do it like this. Desaturate first. See how it's more monochrome? But it's better when you step through it, so I'm going to disable these. Go over here. So now I'm looking at I have my original, turn the brightness down. And now I'm going to saturation. I'm going to just desaturate like maybe that much, and I'll do a before, after, before, after. Not such a dramatic change. You don't want to change like too much, too dramatically on the first go. So boom, still looks natural. And then let's see what happens when I. Just gonna delete these for the sake of demo. So I've desaturated it first, and I'm gonna So turn up the blue. Saturate even more. All right. Still not nighttime, is it? Brightness down even more. And you know what else there is about, you know what? Got to turn my red down. You know what else there is about nighttime? Things appear to have more contrast, especially metallic objects. So if you have a car riding by, or maybe even one of these garbage bins, you'd want to think about turning up the contrast. So I'll access contrast through, oops, color correct. Bump that up. There you go. And you know what? You might have to negotiate this with your gain. Now we're closer to evening-ish. This could have been shot under better conditions, or you know, certain things are just too highlight, maybe. And we're in an alley situation, so this stuff is darker. It's something to think about, but this is just a sample shot for the sake of demo. Okay, so now I'm going to go with before, after. Before, after. I wonder what I got on this other one. A bit darker, but a similar thing. And this is not magic. You will not necessarily just sit down here for 3-5 minutes and magically have a totally transformed shot. Some shots take days to work on. So once again, just to summarize the steps, solving one problem at a time. You know what? It's way too bright. Let's turn it down. I know I'm going to be multiplying a monochromatic color into this, so desaturate and multiply blue. And you have nighttime, and perhaps turn up the contrast. And then tweak along the way, brightness. So I've been tweaking brightness and contrast. But another consideration, depending on the shot, is gamma. So if you want the brightness down, you want a bit more contrast, but too many things are getting lost. Gamma is an interesting way to have the effect of contrast without losing the blacks and while preserving the whites. So that's something to think about too. If the contrast is being too dramatic, and if let's turn the contrast back down. I'll just disable this. So this one is a more elegant, less harsh treatment, because now I've implemented the gamma without disturbing the black point and the white point. Alright, so down brightness, desaturate, multiply blue, increase contrast. Done.